think one of the things that is kind of very much sticking out from all of your stories is that one, there was a moment that you saw yourself, and two, you realized that your story was important and just as important as everybody else, and that you could write a story. So now you've had these careers where you have written many, many stories, where you've involved other people in it. You've partnered. For you right now, I'm sure you all know. It might not be a surprise that black characters and stories written by black creatives are kind of quote unquote hot right now, whether done well or not. And this is in terms of adaptations. Stories that focus on a lot of times black pain, but in many times black joy. For you, one, are there stories that you're still hoping in your work to bring to screen, but also talk about what a good story for you means? Personally, as you as a storyteller, but just also like getting around the stereotypes and the stigmas that come with putting people of color on screens. I will shoot it over. I'll shoot it back to you, Tananarive,
Oh,
actually.
back to me first. To me, it's all about character. If no matter what genre, okay, and I also teach writing, and I also teach no matter what genre I'm teaching, it starts with character. Do I believe in this person? If I believe in this person, I will follow them on a spaceship. I will follow them through a demon attack. I will follow them through whatever the genre is. But that for me is the core, is creating experiences that really do replicate what life feels like. And also personally, writing horror, giving me examples of characters who can stand up to the unknown with courage, and they might not win, but they're trying to fight. So, and in terms of which works, trying to bring to the screen, all of them. I've been publishing since 1995. I've been pitching since Steve and I got married for 23 years. And horror noir was the short stories we adapted in horror noir were the very first. But yes, I have all my books, The Between, My Soul to Keep, The Good House. And I would feel bad that it's taken so long, but then I remember, wait, Octavia Butler hasn't had her work on the screen yet either, right?
Mm.
So it's nothing personal. It's just a very, very difficult transition.
And hold that thought because we are going to be asking about pitching right after this. So that's an extremely important part of this process that I also think is kind of a black hole for some folks, in that they put their thoughts but they're not really sure what it means. Let's jump over to Prentice. Good
Um,
story. What does it mean?
I mean, obviously, that's such a big question. Uh, for, for me, it's really about. Well, I would say the one thing that I'm trying to do more of is just seeing is normalizing blackness. And I can only speak to myself in ways I get like after Insecure and Uncorked. I just got a ton of first black insert bio person name here. And it's always, and every black person in America has a similar version of that story, right? We kind of know the beats of that, right? And so for me, I'm more interested, I think Sebastian, I'm interested in doing things that are rooted in blackness that have nothing to do with this sort of white specter of umbrella hanging on top of it. Like not letting whiteness determine what the blackness in the story has to be. And because we exist in a totally normal way, in an everyday way, where the I don't think about white people in that way affecting the way I interact with my mother or my kids or my wife or the types of things I want to do, right? And whether you want to be in a space thing or this thing over there. So for me, it's just normalizing our existence without it being like, oh, there's the one black character in the space thing, or there's the one black character in the fantasy world, right? So that's really what my mission is right now, and the types of things that I'm trying to make is just normalizing our existence without it having to be special in any kind of way.
Malcolm.
Um, I'm a big fan of magical realism. So I mean, there's a lot of like I have a couple plays, and I think that's always a thing that I find. Like I love like John Patrick Shanley and Dreamer Comes with Pillow and things like that, and weird sci-fi. Like I love the Lovecraft series that just came out, and like to me, I think one of the most underdeveloped things is like what we're calling a lot of the sort of black magic or black girl magic and things like that. Like I just love the idea of us existing in this other sort of fantasy world. And so that's something that I think that modern day television is just catching up to, is going like we can exist in fantasy and joyful fantasy, and so that's a thing that I'm really excited to see in this world. And I think that's the things that I most connect to. I think there's two things I really connect to, which is just like I really dig neighborhood shit, right? I dig talking head pieces, and things where it's about where we're from. But then I also love the idea of like everybody I know. Look, I came from a neighborhood, like I came from the hood, and I came from a real nerd school. Like I was always in the nerd classes. So to see people from the hood who were nerdy and into comic books was not that big a deal to me. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, what? Black people like space? Like that wasn't like a crazy like. What's funny is I was just talking to a buddy of mine, Torin Clark, who's become this super working comic book artist.
Yeah.
And we grew up in elementary school, same hood, and we were talking about how we made up our own comic book one time based off of like all these different amalgamations, and then like cut to us reconnecting 20 years later, and he's doing the cover art for Milestone and Black Panther and all of this, and In Demand, and I'm doing these time travel shows and these comic book genre shows. And so for me, the same way Prentice is talking about normalizing blackness, I'm trying to normalize black eccentricity, and
Mm,
so that's been, if you look at the stuff that I'm doing, that's been the sort of main through line through all of it.
love it. Well, speaking of Black Girl Magic, Sebastian, you kind of
That's a
well,
nice
you
lead
taught
in.
you. It was. You're welcome. But like you really talked about protecting the stories of the ancestors, right? Because that
Mhm.
also leads to authenticity of story. That leads to genuineness of story. So like for you, as you're crafting, and as you're kind of leading when it comes to comics, but also pushing into adaptations, what is good story? What does a good story look like?
I mean, I think the panelists have kind of talked about the normalizing the humanity of a character. I think when you have, like, I mean, when we do promotion for our comic books, a lot of it is you start promoting the cultural aesthetic, and so people go like, "Oh, this is great," and then but there becomes this almost this rub of like there's an immediate pushback of like, oh, you're promoting the cosmeticness of what this is. It's black fantasy. It's Lord of the Rings, but with black people. Some of you just see a lot of shit in the posts, and then you're also trying to you have this small window to also talk about the integrity of the story. And I think to piggyback what the guys are saying is the integrity of the story, I think, is always uncompromising, right? It's like Coltrane. It's like you kind of want to you're creating a story of intention, and you want to create these characters that have their own personal journeys and their own peaks and valleys, and allow them to evolve as well. Because I think a lot of times when you have these immediacies of a comic book which has 4 issues, or there's a snapshot in time of a specific character, I think inherently with black or people of color type characters, it's like, oh, you're a monolithic character and you've got to represent an entire, the diaspora in these 4 issues. Go, as opposed to are you allowed to have them to have their pitfalls and stumbles and growth and so on. So to me, it's allowing and not being caught up in some hashtag or some current trends. I mean, the character of Naibi came to me 30 years ago. Right, I'm 48 now. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like I think there's an immediate kind of lottery ticket, which is an unrealistic kind of perspective for young creators to be like, oh shit, I can create something black and it's going to be on a show and I'm going to create a comic book, I'm going to get paid. So it's like everything's just 1 + 1 equals, mum's new house, and it's just not a reality. So, um, coming back to the root of the question is honoring the characters and allowing them to have their journey, allowing them to breathe, allowing them to fall in love and be heartbroken, allowing to be and exist. And then I also think too, and then I'll shut up, is I think when you're creating these opportunities, as you're creating a ceremony of culture, right? When you have art, are you creating the art to get just to get paid, or are you creating art to honor the ceremony of culture? And I think if you can honor the ceremony of culture, then you're nourishing your own soul, and you're potentially nourishing the soul of someone that's going to read your shit. And if you come at from that perspective, then you are paid in the ways that you need to be.
So before I get to you, Stephen, I want to switch the question because this is kind of leading to the next thing is you have a good story. You've written a great story. You've crafted it. You love it. You've written it, rewritten it, you've sent it to your friends, it's been dissected and redissected. People use this word pitching, pitch deck, all of these big words that get things to screen, whether it's small screen or big screen, whether you're pitching in a writer's room, whether you're pitching as a creative. Can we break down for folks out there who have absolutely no clue what the word pitch really means down, right? You are experts, you've gone through it, you've done the good, the bad. I'm sure you've made mistakes. I'm sure you've learned from mentors. Like, can you break down what you thought a pitch was when you first heard this word and then what you actually found out it really was at the end of the day?
I think that my idea of what it is basically has not changed, and my understanding of how to do it has changed drastically. The creation of the work of art is, from my perspective, an act of self-creation, an act of self-revelation. It is that is the artistic expression, the who am I, what is true, and it is as pure as you can make it. But that's very similar to a kid dancing in the living room, where the parents and the neighbors are saying, "Oh, what a brilliant child," and they clap and they give you kisses and they throw coins. Well, that's fine, but every house on the block has a kid like that. If you want to stand out in the marketplace, you've got to market. You've got to sell. You've got to step out of the creative artist part that believes in yourself as a unique individual in the entire history of the universe and stand up in the marketplace and say, give your money to me instead of the person over there. Because no matter how you slice it, there is some aspect of that limited pie. If not, all the artists would get paid exactly the same thing. Okay, so if everyone would love to make their living doing art, I mean, expressing themselves, loving something, expressing their love for something, singing, dancing, painting, drawing, telling stories, telling jokes. We would love it if that's all we had to do to earn the big car and the big house and put our kids through college. So the question is, what is sales? What is marketing? And what sales is a transfer of enthusiasm from one person to another. Marketing is identifying the group that wants what it is that you have to offer or stimulating an appetite for what you have to offer in a given group. Sales is convincing them to give you their money now. Okay, so a pitch meeting is a meeting in which you walk into a room with money people. These are people who control the purse, the wallet. Okay, they're coming down from the billionaire who started the company, not up from the creative artists who have the material that they want to have published or turn into a television production. The person behind the desk understands the business of it much better than you do usually. They understand how to hire people, and the director, the producer, the executive producer, and what all these people need in order to get their work done and pay their bills. So if you walk in there not with a work of art, but with the blueprint for a work of art, your script is a blueprint for their production people, their director, their actors, their composers, to be able to add their creativity to it. You're not building the house, not unless you write it and produce it and direct it and star in it. You're giving them the blueprints for a house. You understand? And so what you have to do is in 3 minutes, because they've listened to a dozen of the pitches that day. You've got to get them excited. You've got to make them think, wow, I'd watch that. And because in general, people in that position are in that position because their instinct, if they're good, their instinctive take on things is in alignment with what an audience wants to see. so they can trust
Yeah.
their instincts, and their instincts have been right. When their instincts stop being right, they try to figure it out with formulas, and that doesn't work, and they'll lose their job, and they're out, and they'll